Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice, and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. I know that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. That the Lord has made.
Woo! I said in the first service, it's like an embarrassment of riches in our music today to have all this talent on stage, but I'll take it. It's okay. Just have to fight my urge to come up here and join them in every song. So. Hey, I want to let you know there's a new speaker that we're going to be trying out on a Sunday morning. I hear good things about him. His name is Howard Caesar. Have you ever heard of him? Oh, you know. He's really busy. He's doing a lot of other things, but we're going to, in September 16th, mark your calendars, we're going to be bringing back Reverend Howard. We couldn't get him any sooner. That's just what happened. You know, he's busy. So if those of you who are new, you don't know, Reverend Howard Caesar was the senior minister at this church for 34 years, up until last September. I'm so grateful to be succeeding him in this post. Right now, this morning, he is speaking at the Mile High Church in Denver, Colorado. That's right. He's all over the place. If you don't know, Mile High is another New Thought church. It's the largest New Thought church in the world, as far as I know. We had a great opportunity when Howard and Diane were stepping into this next chapter of their lives last September. It was 10 days after the hurricane. If you remember, it was Howard's last Sunday as senior minister. And we had all these celebrations planned, but the world had changed. We didn't know how to go forward. And one of the things that we had planned was a dinner with all these colleagues, former associate ministers, and people like Roger Teal and his wife Erica. And we really felt we wanted to go ahead and honor Howard and Diane, and we had those celebrations. And during the dinner that we had on that Friday night, we honored Howard and Diane, and all of us who had been colleagues. Karen was there, and Patricia Bass came back. It was just wonderful. We all shared our heart around Howard and Diane. And I'd shared that old quote, you know, behind every great man there is a great woman. You've heard that. Kind of trite and gender, you know, but I said, but you know, Diane is not only able to stand behind and support, she's able to walk alongside, and she is able to stand out in front on her own. I was really proud of my speech. It was good. And then everybody went around, all this heartfelt talk, and then the last person to share was Roger Teal's wife, Erica, who was very quiet and unassuming, but she'll get you. And she said, well, I've been listening to everybody talk, and that thing that Michael said about, you know, behind every great, the way I heard it was this: behind every great man is a surprised woman. I love that. So today, how does that relate to what we're talking about? We're celebrating Pride Month, and we're celebrating so much today. But what it really came down to was that this idea of who does it by themselves? No one. That we are individuals and we are collective. There's an I and there's a we. And in our spiritual tradition, we have really focused heavily on the I, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that's where we do the work. Each of us individually does our choice, our spiritual work of coming back to the oneness of who we are. That's what we're about. So the I is very important. But there is a we that is also very important. And in our tradition, in our history, which isn't that long, when you think about other spiritual traditions that have been around for thousands of years, we've been around for about 120 years. And we have been very focused on the individual's ability to work with the law, to work with the creative energy of the universe, and to create what it is that we need to create. But we haven't always been good about standing up for the we. And it's time that we do that more and more. It's not an either or. Do you understand what I'm saying? I've been talking about this idea of the polarity of masculine and feminine energy a lot. Well, this is another polarity. It's not a duality. We believe in oneness. But the polarity is I and we. We all need to be able to move with both of these things. There's also an evolutionary aspect to this. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about the three faces of God. There's another movement or an understanding that comes through the integral movement. It's the spiral dynamics. It's a way of seeing the evolution of human consciousness through distinct measurable levels, both in the individual and in the collective. And what the model teaches us is that from each successive level, we'll go from an emphasis to the individual, to the collective, to the individual, all the time rising in consciousness. And unity and America really was born out of this emphasis on the individual. That the kings, we had this idea that if you were not born of royal blood, you were less than, and in this country we said, nah. That we are all created equal in the eyes of God. That there is a strong feeling of the individual's ability to determine their own path in the world. And so that's been our history. Some cultures do it differently. If you think about, what's the saying we have here in America or in the West, that the greasy wheel gets the grease, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, I guess it's greasy after you squeaks. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. What's that talking about? That if the individual speaks up, something happens. In Japan, they actually say that the nail that sticks up gets the hammer. Yeah, it's a different culture. They have an emphasis on conformity, on working to the good of the group over that of the individual. Now, I believe that we are on the cusp of a shift, both as a culture in the world. What we would describe it in spiral dynamics terms is orange is the level used to describe this very focus on individual drive is sometimes called. It's about self-determination and will. The Industrial Revolution is a part of this. Into the next level that's predicted, that's being experienced, is called green. It's back to a determined focus on the collective, on the we. It's more about care for the environment, for people. And our church we're in that phase too. I see that. A few years ago, some individuals who had been longtime members of this community just said, we're really not doing enough to help people in Houston. And our Unity in the Community initiative was born. There are other things that are just coming up. We're beginning to feel this desire to attend to the we in the world. Now, I do want to say it's not an either or. I joked about it in the first service. I used to be a musician years ago. I had a whole other career. I haven't done an album in 7 years. This preaching thing is really getting in the way of my musical career, I've noticed. But my last album, and I did in 2011, the photo on the image on the cover is of me conducting my choir in Reno, and I'm going, really trying to get them into it. And another friend of mine said, it looks like you're going, where's my stuff? And that's a lot of what our teaching has been about. Did you see the secret? I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's like, how do I use spiritual principles to get what I want? And it works, and there comes a point where we get enough stuff. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you just spiritualize materialism. What I believe is that the natural outpicturing of our deep understanding of oneness will reveal itself as greater care for those around us, greater care for the planet, greater care for those who are underprivileged or oppressed, that this is a natural evolution of our teaching. that we don't focus on ourselves so much that we ignore what's happening to those who haven't gotten all the advantages we've gotten. And this is new for us. So we're kind of stepping into it gingerly, and we're doing it together, and we're asking, is this ours to do? Is this ours to do? We started about 5 years ago celebrating minority groups on Black History Month and Pride, and also on Hispanic Heritage Month. And some people were like, why are you separating us like that? Well, if you've never been a part of an oppressed group, you wouldn't maybe understand what that's like. But if you have, you would understand that visibility is important. To be able to know when you walk into a church that you are welcome. It's important. And so we have been walking into this in greater and greater degrees of finding our we, finding the way that we can do this together in a way that celebrates all and still empowers the individual to recreate lives in their own life in a way that is just exactly right. There's a great quote by Howard Thurman. I love this. And it says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." See, that is the natural evolution on the individual level, that when we do our spiritual work, our lives will start working. We do have the money to pay our bills. We do have the job that fulfills us. Our bodies might even look a little bit better. Who knows what can happen when we start working with these principles? But we start feeling good, and then there comes a point where we want to be free to give our gift to help others. It's natural. It is the way we are wired. Going back to that idea of greatness, there's a quote I want to share with you. You probably have heard it. It says this: "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." You've heard that, right? Do you know anyone who said it? Shakespeare. Somebody knew. That's right. It's from Twelfth Night. The whole quote is this: "Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great. Some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." Is anybody else a movie fan? Did you watch the Oscars this year? When Allison Janney won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for I, Tonya, she walks up and she says, "I did it all by myself." And it got a big laugh. Because nobody nobody does it all by themselves. And so the idea that behind every great person is another great person, there's actually, you can imagine, just a whole group of people that are there supporting, urging, lifting. None of us does it by ourselves. And so what I'm asking us to consider today is, how can we acknowledge the we? How can we step into it in a conscious way that is right for our community, that is right for us to give of our good to help others? There's a passage in Matthew chapter 25. And some people have said it's a parable. Scholars differ on this. Some people say it's a prophecy. But Jesus describes that at the end of time, the Son of Man sits upon the throne, and all the people who have lived are brought before him, and they are judged and divided into the sheep and the goats. The sheep are on his right, the goats are on his left. And the way the dividing line is this: Jesus says to the ones on his right, "When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was in need, you attended to me." And those on his right would say, "Lord, when did we ever see you naked or hungry or in need?" And in verse 40 of chapter 25, Jesus said, "That which you have done unto the least of these, my brothers, you have done unto me." And then there's another part to the story. He goes on to the ones on his left, and he says this: "And you, I came to you when I was naked, and you did not clothe me. I came to you when I was hungry, and you did not feed me. I was in need, and you did not attend to me." And they cried, "Lord, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or naked or in need?" And Jesus said, "That which you did not do unto the least of these, my brothers, you did not do unto me." It's interesting. Now, we are not an exclusionary, we don't teach eternal punishment in hell, right? That we actually believe and we teach that the love of God is who and what we are, but sometimes we forget. I forget daily. Some people have forgotten a long time. And that's what we would call evil in the world. And so we actually don't teach that God is going to send people to hell forever, but that eventually, in ways we don't understand, and it may take lifetimes to do this, we will all be reconciled into the love of God, which is what we are. This is our vision for eternity. Now, some churches teach something different on Sunday morning. Have you noticed? And a lot of those churches, they ignore this passage. Because it comes to us that Jesus actually said eternal punishment for those who did not attend to the needy, and eternal life for those who did. That's what Jesus said, according to the Gospel of Matthew. It doesn't say anything about, are you believing the right thing? Do you attend the right church? It's not an exclusionary message. The only determination for eternal punishment or eternal life, according to Jesus the Christ, in this passage of the book of Matthew is, did you attend to the needy? Are you paying attention to the we? And this is ignored in our culture because we're wanting our stuff. I want mine, and yet we ignore those who may need. Now, I don't know if Jesus said it in that way, and I tend to be more in the parable camp of this teaching. And what I believe is that the eternal now is heaven or hell, depending upon how we're living. We are made in the image and likeness of divine love, and when we are in the givingness and the receivingness of God's love, we are living our eternal life right now. See, we had this idea that our eternal life starts when this body dies. No. You're living your eternal life right now. And if we close ourselves off from the we, if we are so focused on ourselves and our egoic needs for acquisition and recognition, then we will be in eternal punishment right now. In this eternal now, because we have cut ourselves off from our connection. That, I believe, is the message here. Is that the power of our need to love and care for each other is that important. It's that important. And so what do we think about greatness then? Or do we just sacrifice ourselves so that we can just give to people all the time? I don't believe so. I believe that this is a new evolution too, the idea of self-care first. You can't give from an empty cup. You can't give from depletion. You have to take care of yourself. And then, what if we at this church could model for the world what it's like to give from the overflow of God's good? How does that feel? Not from guilt. I'm not up here to try and guilt you into doing something you don't have time to do. But the concept that we are so blessed, so richly filled by love and blessings of all kinds that we have enough to give easily, generously. How does that, I love that word, generosity. That's who I'm called to be. I'm given to generously and I give generously. That's what it's about. And I believe truly, if we want to talk about greatness, somebody else reminded me yesterday that the narcissist's only needs are, the only motivations of the narcissist are to avoid shame and to gain praise. That's all that they need. But love, which is true greatness, seeks to give and to receive. Mother Teresa, who gave so much in her lifetime, she said there are no great acts, there are only small acts with great love. So I believe we are called to greatness both individually and collectively, and the way we do that is by choosing love. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. You will find this hard to believe, but even unity ministers sometimes still have ego. Why are you laughing? I expected gasps. A word about the ego. A spiritual ego, as described in some of the great works like the Course in Miracles, is different than the psychological ego in some ways. We all have to have an ego in the psychological understanding to navigate the world. We have to know where I end and you begin. But when the ego gets a hold of that narcissistic need for praise, for attention, to avoid shame, that's Not good. I myself have struggled with the ego. I know, don't gasp, just be quiet. I have. Particularly in my early 20s, I was a struggling young musician, just struggling in addiction, struggling with religion. You know, I felt cast out from the religion of my childhood, just adrift, and just needing so much to be seen and valued. But the way I was going about it was seeking recognition. And I was singing in piano bars in Dallas, Texas, and I had a crazy thought just landed full-formed in my head when I was probably 23, 24. And it was this: you're going to have your big break when you're 35. I don't get thoughts like that. I don't know where it came from, but it was there. And I knew it was something because it never went away and I never talked about it. A few years later, I discovered 12-step recovery. I discovered New Thought teachings. I began to work on my life, and I got healed in so many ways that by the time I was 35, I wasn't even looking for a big break because my life worked. I was making a good living. I had an amazing community. I had beautiful relationships. My life was a success. I was living my greatness in many ways. It felt so good. But at about that time, I had a gig at the Tremont Retirement Center in Dallas, Texas. I played there for many years. In the beginning, I needed the $50 check. You know, later on, I developed relationships, and I loved singing for those folks. And one night, I got booked to sing for their senior prom. Well, let me just be honest. I was not the main act. I was the headline. Not the headliner. I was the opening act. The opening act was me. The headliner was the accordion band. And somehow, they had made a mistake in the scheduling, and so I am coming into the room to do my hour set, and there's nobody there. Except Dottie. Dottie was this 80-something lady that I had met there. I'd been singing there for years, and I just loved her. She loved me. We had this connection. She was a little territorial, though. She would put she had one of those walkers with a seat in it. She'd put it right in front of my piano bench, and if any of the other ladies tried to hug me, she'd say, "Back off, he's mine." No lie. That's exactly what she would do. Well, here was Dottie and me at the senior prom. And I'm singing, and I thought, you know what? This is great. I love doing this, and so much for my big break, right? Here I am. No, I get one person come to hear me sing. It was right after my 35th birthday. So I'm singing for her, and we're just in this beautiful moment of connection, and her favorite song in the whole world was Stardust by Hoagy, Carmichael. And I'm singing that favorite song of hers. Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely night dreaming of a song. She had met Hoagy Carmichael in the 1950s at a party in Dallas. She lived in New Orleans, but she had met him, and she said he was an ugly man who had a bad hat. She had very strong judgments. Dottie did. Well, Dottie and I had this connection through the little place where she lived, where I would sing, but we had another level of connection that her daughter, completely unknown to us, became a member of my church in Dallas, and she and I also became very good friends. I felt very connected, and I'm singing this song to Dottie. It was one of the most perfect moments of my life. I can't describe what it was. I've sung that song many times, but in that moment, it's like there was this golden bubble where time expanded, love flowed so easily. We were so connected. There was nothing that could have been added to that moment to make it better. It was perfect. I felt so fulfilled and purposeful. Right. The moment was filled with love, connection. And then the song ended. I finished my set. I kissed her on the head, got in my car, and was driving down the Dallas North Tollway to my home, and then something happened. I describe it as like a wash of awareness. It was like this, boom. In an instant, I knew several things at one time. The first was this: my work in this world is to create connection. That's why I'm here. And that connection comes through the heart for me. That there's something about the way I'm wired that if I can move into my heart, it allows something to happen out here. I don't exactly understand it, but I knew what that was. And I got to that when I'm singing and I'm having a moment and people cry or whatever, they're not feeling my feelings, they're feeling their own. There's something in my energy that allows something to unlock in the human heart. The second thing I knew was, it doesn't matter if I do this with one 85-year-old lady at the piano or if I do it with 10,000 people. It's the same. This is my work. This is what I'm here to do. And the third thing I knew was that this is my big break. To know this. And I can cease striving to gain fame or acclaim. I can simply make connections where I am and trust that God will lead me to the next opportunity to do it again. And it's led me here to you this morning. We are here to love each other. We are here to love each other. All of us. Even the ones who you would oppose in the world, you are here to love them. Even those who would oppose you, you are here to love them. And we are here to teach this kind of love that changes hearts, that changes families, that changes worlds. There are no great acts, only small acts with great, great love. This morning, we are called to love those who need our love. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I feel it. And I'm asking you to come with me on this journey, that we are here to love. You are amazing. Something, I don't know what, something's happening here. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.